The loudest person in any room is a decoy. They are a broadcast signal designed to distract you from where the real power sits. By the end of this, you'll know how to locate the true center of gravity in any group within 90 seconds. You will learn to see the invisible architecture of influence that everyone else misses. And right now, in every meeting, negotiation, or family dinner, you are being influenced by this architecture. If you can't see it, you are its primary subject. You walk into a room. Before you look at a single face, look at the geometry of the space. Human beings are territorial animals who speak the language of furniture. A long rectangular table is a declaration of hierarchy. The person at the head of that table is in a position of authority, a king on a throne. Everyone else is arrayed along lines of diminishing importance. The closer you are to the king, the more status you hold. The person sitting directly opposite them is often the designated opposition, the focal point of a challenge. A round table is an attempt at egalitarianism. It tries to signal that all voices are equal. Look for the subtle break in that equality. Who has the most space around them? Whose chair is pulled back just an extra inch, claiming more territory? Who is sitting closest to the door, signaling a desire for escape or a lower commitment to the group's agenda? The room tells a story before the first word is spoken. It is the stage, and the stage design dictates the opening act. But the arrangement of the stage is only the static map. The real information starts flowing when you see how people move within it. The way a person occupies their chair is a direct report on their internal state. Someone leaning back, hands behind their head, is broadcasting comfort, status, or even arrogance. They are taking up maximum space. They feel no threat. Contrast this with a person hunched over, elbows tucked in, making themselves small. This is a posture of defense or deference. They are trying to go unnoticed. Watch how people use objects. A laptop opened like a fortress wall, a coffee cup held with two hands like a shield, a stack of papers meticulously aligned to form a barrier. These are territorial markers. They are unconscious attempts to manage anxiety by controlling a small patch of the physical world. And then there are the feet. While people learn to manage their facial expressions, they forget about their feet entirely. The feet are the most honest part of the body. They point where the mind wants to go. If someone is talking to you but their feet are angled toward the door, their mind has already left the conversation. In a group, notice the direction of people's feet. They will almost always point toward the person they perceive as the leader or the person they are most engaged with, regardless of who is currently speaking. This creates invisible lines of force across the room. You can map the entire social dynamic just by looking at the floor. It reveals the magnetic poles of the group. But this map of physical space only shows where people stand. To understand where they are going, you have to track the most valuable currency in the room. That currency is attention. Where attention flows, power accumulates. When you enter a room, your first task is to stop broadcasting and start receiving. Watch who people look at when they finish speaking. This is the tell. It's a subconscious check-in, a glance that asks, "Was that okay? Did that land?" They are looking to the person whose opinion matters most to them. That person is the true leader of that interaction, the source of validation. The person speaking is often just a proxy. The person they look to is the one holding the authority. Notice it during a joke. When someone tells a joke, the group laughs. But watch the joker. They will flicker their eyes to one person for a fraction of a second. They are checking on the real audience. If that person laughs, the joke was a success. The laughter of others is secondary. This gaze tracking allows you to build a hierarchy chart in real time. Person A speaks and looks at person B. Person C speaks and looks at person B. Person B speaks and looks at no one. You have just identified the apex of the pyramid. The person who needs no one else's approval is the one who has the most power. Pay attention to interruptions. Who can interrupt whom? If person A interrupts person B and B stops talking, A has more status. If A interrupts B and B keeps talking right over them, B has more status. It's a constant subtle negotiation of dominance playing out in 100 tiny transactions per minute. Listening to the words tells you the topic of the conversation. Watching the flow of attention tells you the purpose of it. And this purpose often operates on an entirely different level, an emotional current running just beneath the surface. Every group has an emotional pacemaker. This is the person whose emotional state is the most contagious. If they get tense, you can feel a ripple of anxiety spread through the room. If they relax and smile, the entire group exhales with them. Your job is to identify this person. They are the emotional conductor. Once you find them, you can predict the emotional weather of the room by watching them alone. This often requires listening for the silence behind the noise. After a proposal is made, there's a beat of silence. What is the quality of that silence? Is it thoughtful? Is it tense? Is it confused? The collective micro-expressions on people's faces in that single beat will tell you more than the 5 minutes of polite discussion that follows. Look for emotional congruence. When the boss makes a bad joke, who laughs a half-second too late? That delay is the data. It's the time it takes for the conscious brain to override the limbic brain's honest reaction. The person who laughs instantly and genuinely either truly finds it funny or has a deeply ingrained political skill. The person who forces the laugh is revealing their position in the hierarchy. They know they must laugh. That is a form of tribute. The person who doesn't laugh at all is either very powerful or socially clueless. Distinguishing between the two is key. This emotional undercurrent is where the real decisions are being felt out, long before they are articulated. It's a language of intuition. But reading the present state of the room is an intermediate skill. The master-level skill is identifying where the decision will ultimately be made. In any discussion, people are performing for an audience. The mistake is assuming the audience is everyone in the room. The reality is, there is usually an audience of one. This is the decisive person. They are often the quietest. They are the stakeholder everyone is trying to persuade. The undecided voter in the mental election, the senior client whose opinion will make or break the deal. The two people having the loudest argument are often just gladiators in a coliseum, performing for the emperor. Your task is to find the emperor. How? Look for the person who is being triangulated. When person A makes a point to person B, they will often flick their eyes to person C to see how it landed. They are fighting their battle with B, but they're checking the scoreboard with C. Person C is the decisive audience. They might be the junior analyst who the CEO trusts implicitly. They might be the quiet engineer who has veto power over the technical feasibility of a project. They might be the spouse in a family argument whose quiet support will ultimately determine the outcome. While everyone else is watching the debate, you should be watching the jury. Their subtle nods, their slight frowns, the moment they start taking a note, these are the signals that matter. The person who successfully persuades this audience of one will win the day, regardless of how well they argued with everyone else. Finding this person transforms you from a spectator of the drama to a reader of the entire system. You are seeing the conclusion of the story before the other characters have finished their lines. This entire process is about shifting your focus from content to context. The words people say are the surface layer, the most edited and least reliable data source in any human interaction. The real information is in the environment, the posture, the flow of attention, and the emotional resonance. Reading a room isn't a mystical talent. It's a skill of observation, of turning down the volume on your own ego and turning up the gain on your sensory input. The final step is to understand that you are also a part of this system. As you observe, you are also being observed. The way you stand, the person you look to for approval, the emotional energy you project, it all becomes data for the next person who walks through the door. The ultimate skill, then, becomes less about reading the room and more about understanding what the room is reading from you. Because the room you're in is always, in some way, a reflection of the signals you've been sending out all along.